this show, you'll find inspiration, motivation, and advice from experts, as well as valuable tips on how to get started or improve your business. Let's dive into how you can begin and grow your wisdom business. Inspiring others looks different for everyone. How will you inspire?
Welcome to the Wise Zone podcast, and today we're chatting with Ian Westmoreland. Is that correct? Have I said
You got it right. That's it.
Welcome to our podcast today, Ian.
G'day, Nikki. It's great to be here. Thank you for the opportunity.
Awesome. I really want to learn a lot about what you're doing because, like you just mentioned, just pre-recording to this, you volunteer your time and your efforts. So please do share your story with us all, how this all got started and where it's eventuated.
Okay. Probably should start with my family. So I've been married to my wife, Helen, for over 40 years. We have 4 kids, and our 12th grandchild arrived just under a year ago. In fact, she got dedicated last Sunday. So I've got this amazing family that we get together, all 22 of us, on a regular basis. So absolutely blessed for the family.
Yeah.
In life, I struggled with self-esteem and confidence as a kid, and even moving into my early 20s. Failed my way through HSC, then actually got it at night school later on, and then tried engineering and failed at that. Always keen to make money, so I had a full-time. I started full-time work in 1972, and I've always been in full-time employment. But in addition to that, to try and bring in some more money, I would do other businesses on the side. Early on, I used to import squash and tennis rackets. Really some interesting stories around that. Yeah. And then when we got married, we moved into a milk bar. So I would open the milk bar in the morning, head off to my full-time job. My wife would run it. I'd come home and close it. And then Saturday and Sunday, you just keep working the shop. So then did some other businesses. And then gradually, we were poor at the start. My wife would be cleaning houses part-time, and the kids are around then, and working at Denny's restaurants and doing some disc budding just in the plant business for a brother. But gradually, I started to work my way up through my career back in Telstra years ago. And then in 1995, took an incredibly brave move. I quit my job in Telstra. My wife is the risk taker, and I took up a contract role in New Zealand, working for a telco over there. So I took my wife and the 4 kids, and that was a huge leap in terms of pay and I guess how I was seen and like self-confidence. Ultimately, I was really nervous about the decision.
Yeah.
Had 2 years in New Zealand, then came over to Sydney to an even better pay rate. It's like the reputation grew, and I continued to work in utility space, and to the point where I actually got financially comfortable. And in 2013, I increasingly started to think there's more to life than just making money and delivering software changes. And then a key date on the 10th of September 2013, I got on the train in Sydney at my station, Asquith Station, to come to work, and I continued to read a book my youngest daughter had given me. And what I read that morning transformed the thinking for the rest of my life.
Wow.
And in May 2014, I quit paid work. I became a full-time volunteer. And I signed up to mentor young kids in high schools through the Raise Foundation, and I was doing that at multiple schools. And then I found out about another program called Kids Hope, which was mentoring kids in primary school. So I signed up for that as well.
Yeah.
And then I found out about another mentoring program that supported families called Coach. So I signed up for that as well.
Yeah.
And I was also looking after grandkids at that stage. So life was great. And then I had another life-changing moment. In 2018, I was mentoring a young guy in one of the Sydney high schools. And in a meeting I had with him, he shared with me that his father had suicided. His mum was an addict who was in and out of rehab. he was living with his grandparents, which he hated. And then he just turned and he looked me in the eyes and he started crying. And he said, Ian, help me. And I've learned through the journey, I've got a lot of empathy, which can be good and not good, but impacted me. I debriefed with the program counsellor afterwards, just looking for a guidance. And she surprised me. She said, Ian, are you okay? And I just started crying myself over the situation. And after a couple of months of being flat, I realised I wanted a mentor, just like I'd been a mentor to all these young people. And I should clarify, for most people, particularly people in business, mentoring means someone with acquired skills, knowledge, experience, who guides, directs, advises someone else. And that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about, I call it life mentoring. And it's predominantly listening and it's encouraging, supporting. People aren't broken. They don't need fixing. They just need validating. Or to put it softer, they just need to be shown some love or, their work. So that motivated me to start I looked around for the nearest organisation that provided life mentoring to men. And I was surprised and incredibly disappointed to find there was nothing suitable as a demographic. Men struggle more than most other demographics. We struggle around shame, around confusion, around masculinity. We don't, it's this facade that we put on. And it motivated me to write a proposal to establish what was to become Mentoring Men. Throughout my journey, the last 10 years now, there's been amazing things that happen that lead me to strongly believe this is the purpose for my life. There's things that have happened along the way, and I could go into depth about those, but I won't unless people want to find out more information. But I wrote a proposal to establish Mentoring Men, and within 2 weeks, I was at a function at the Hornsby RSL in Sydney, where our local federal member, Julian Lisa, had partnered with Lifeline around a suicide prevention course. Interestingly, that 10th of September, the day my life changed, is also World Suicide Prevention Day. And interestingly, the person I was closest to for all of my life, pre-Helen, was my mum. That was her birthday. And I never think of those things at the time. Anyway, so Julian it formed this arrangement with Lifeline Harbour Hawkesbury, and they developed this suicide prevention course. And Julian got up and he spoke about the suicide of his father over 20 years ago and how there were signs, but no one picked up on the signs. And basically what he wanted was people from every community group in his electorate to do this suicide prevention course and hopefully help prevent suicides. And I don't know why, but I took my proposal for Mentoring Men in a manila folder to that. Why would you do that? But as soon as he finished speaking, I made a beeline for him. He saw me coming. And I said to him, Julian, where was the support that could have helped prevent your father getting to that point? And I told him about Mentoring Men. And he got it straight away. He said, Ian, come and talk to me. I went and saw him in his office. He signed on as an ambassador. And at that point, the rubber hit the road. I was fully committed. And one of my traits is if I start to do something, it's I totally underestimate how much work is going to be involved. And Julian officially launched Mentoring Men at Asquith Golf Club in November 2018. He got us into federal parliament. We met a number of people. He's been a fantastic ambassador for us and continues to be a great ambassador. And after a relatively slow start, it's just boomed. So Mentoring Men, it's a free program where we train up volunteer men like me who support another bloke who may be going through life challenges like job loss, relationship breakdown, loneliness, isolation, anything. And it's the relationships are at least 6 months we ask for, and one-to-one. We don't care what the background, beliefs, culture, but there's a lot of thought goes into the matching. And it saved lives and it's transformed lives. In 2021, it's amazing how many people came on board to help as volunteers, and some financial support, significant financial support came in. And I was able to step aside as the CEO, and we appointed a new CEO, paid, and now there's a dedicated team. And my role, I stepped off the board about 2 months ago as well. I'm still an ambassador for the program, but I basically share the stories on platforms like this.
Yeah.
That freed up some time to think about another, I call them passion projects that I had. So, Nikki, are you okay for me to keep going?
Tell us. Keep talking.
So, as someone who suffered from lack of self-esteem, I used to love reading biographies, autobiographies of people who'd overcome adversity, the Nelson Mandela type stories.
Yep. And
they gave me confidence and built self-belief. It's interesting, in my late teens, my goal was, if I could just be average, if I could just, that was where I was at. And it occurred to me, how good would it be? And back then, I think if successful people, and I've totally changed my definition of successful people, but if successful people who'd overcome adversity shared their stories, that would give people like me this hope. I didn't have the confidence, time, or money, but I wrote to 3 community leaders suggesting, letting them know about this idea. So I wrote to 3 community leaders and to let them know about this. And one of them was Dick Smith. And he sent me back a handwritten note that said, Ian, this is a great idea. And then he added, you do it. And for 30 years, nothing happened. And when Mentoring Men closed, that was an opportunity to actually start to look at doing this. And obviously the technology changed. So the letter I sent out was in August 1993. And since then, there was platforms like this.
Yeah.
So I decided to give this a crack as well and to do everything I could to make it happen. And a mate of mine contacted me. He said, I've got a name for your project. I said, oh, what is he? So Kintsugi. And I said, well, never heard of it. What does it mean? And it's a Japanese art form. And the legend is there was a Japanese emperor who had some valuable pottery. My plastic cup here. But over time, it showed the signs of wear and tear, chipped and cracked. Yeah. And he said to the craftsman, fix it, make it like new. And they couldn't do it. But they said, what we can do is repair it and highlight the damage, but repair it using a precious metal like gold.
Yeah.
And it just resonated. It's a metaphor for the lived experience that the Nickis and the Ians go through in life. Yeah. And so that was it. Kintsugi Heroes. We started last year. We have conversations like this that are recorded. Yep. We edit them into audio, video podcasts. They're also broadcast nationally through the radio networks. So it's over 300 community stations sharing our content. Yeah. And I still love the book idea. So there's an author in New Zealand. We use AI to take a transcript of the conversation, convert it into text, and that gets edited. And the content for the first 2 books are being done as we speak. And
love it.
We cover all sorts of adversity, addiction, domestic violence, grief, physical disability, mental illness, people who've, I guess, alienations, maybe refugees, things like that. So everything's on the cards.
Yeah.
Nikki, I'll pause there and hand it back to you. But that's sort of what's up to today.
I think that's a beautiful and very passionate story. Like just I say the flow, but the fluidity that you gave yourself in your whole life, where you were able to change and you just took signals from here and there, and your intuition just kicked in. And you're obviously, like, I just love, and I don't know how to pronounce the word. How do you pronounce it again?
Well, I say Kintsugi, but I'm not Japanese.
Okay.
Konnichiwa and domo are about the only 2 things I know. And sayonara.
But I love that form. I really, really do. Like my husband and I are very, very passionate about that. Just highlighting a kink. It's just, that's what makes us unique. And, I think what you're doing is absolutely awesome. And like you said, there are so many environmental things that when I say environmental, in the sense of, the lives that we live, the effects that we have, whether it be from parents, grandparents, whatever. So it's a living environment, the working environment and so forth that sort of affects anyone. And majority of the time, yes, there is this stereotypical man, they've got a sort of this shield, this wall they put up and so forth. And there's cracks. There's always cracks. Men and women, we all go through it. And I think it's just very inspirational, the fact that you're actually recognize that and you've taken that step, especially, and I really want to know, what was the book that you were reading on the train that day on the 10th? Was it the 10th of September, or I can't remember the date? But yeah,
10th,
yeah.
So I get asked that a lot, and I always preface it by saying, in both Mentoring Men and Kintsugi Heroes, they're secular programs. We don't care what the background, beliefs, cultures, languages, lived experience, all those things are irrelevant.
Yeah, correct.
For me, I'm a Christian guy. The book I was reading was a Christian book by an American pastor. His name is Steve Furtick, and the book was called Sun Stand Still. But the thing that really got my attention, he basically questioned the meaning of life or the purpose of Christians. And he started listing these things. We feel like we're doing our job or our role. And I was ticking these off as, and it was, I can't remember them all, but it was, get a job, tick, get married, stay out of trouble sort of tick. I was a bit of a rascal in my teens. Have babies, and even had buy a boat. I actually had a boat, and it went on. And then it said, hit age 59 and a half, collect retirement, die. Now, I've been ticking these things off mentally. I was born on the 10th of March, 1954.
Yeah.
I was 59 and a half to the day that I read that. And I said there were so many things along the way, and I've shared that. A lot of people say, oh, that's great, just a coincidence. But that's the first in a whole bunch of things. And I've said it just keeps getting confirmed. And the last 12 months, I've had this concept around finding our best life. And it started, my wife and I are keen bike riders, and we're on the Greek Islands in September last year. And we're on like this pirate ship, like it's a wooden boat with a sailing ship with about 20 other cyclists. And we would go around to Greek Island, they'd unload all the bikes, and then you ride around the island with the tour guide. He had an e-bike, by the way. We didn't have e-bikes, but anyway.
You all had to do.
So we get on this island, and he takes us up. I call it a mountain, but it was up a hill, and he stops us, and he points to an island in the distance, and he started telling the story of Onassis. Nikki, I think you're probably too young to know who Onassis was, but Aristotle Onassis, and he was telling it as a success story for Greeks. And he talked about Onassis was born into poverty, and then initially made his money in the black market with tobacco. And then he invented packaged cigarettes, made an absolute fortune, and then moved into shipping, made a bigger fortune. I think he was the richest man in the world. And most people know him because he married JFK's widow, Jackie Onassis. And then he finished off by saying that he was rumored to have said that they say money can buy love. And I want to tell you, it's not true. I'm the richest man in the world, and I've never found true love. And I couldn't help myself. I put up my hand because he shared this story of success. I said, what a really question your definition of success.
Yes, yeah.
You've got a guy who's invented a product that's killed millions of people and caused untold damage to millions more, and never found true love. Like while he was married to Jackie Onassis, he was having affairs and all that sort of stuff. I said I'd argued that someone who's not wealthy at all but had strong relationships and connections or family is far more successful than him. And the thought just wouldn't go away around this. And I came home. We arrived back in Sydney, jet lagged at 4 o'clock in the morning. I think in pictures, and this picture came to my mind.
Yeah.
And I call it the best life, finding our best life. And it's where we use our talents and our experiences to positively impact the world around us. And it's where we get genuine contentment and fulfillment.
Yeah.
So I've got that on the right side. The left side, I've got someone being born, and then there's this life path, and there's a word map above it that of all the events that hit us, and many of these events are negative. Relationships break down, we get sick, we get abused, lots of these sorts of things. And one of the biggest impacts is this drive around materialism, around consumers, around acquiring the bigger car, the bigger house, more money. And for many people, they lose any consideration to the best life. And when I do a presentation around this, and I say, look, I did this picture for me, but if I could encourage you just for 10 seconds to take a step back, take a step out of your life at the moment, and think about what your best life really is and where you're heading towards it or whatever. And at the bottom, I love Mark Twain quotes. And one of Mark Twain quotes, the two most important days in your life are the day you're born and the day you work out why. And so that's where I'm at. I don't want to give the impression that it's all been a breeze. The last 9 years has been incredibly fulfilling. But, if you talk to my family, they'll tell you that it's been hard on them, and it's a lot of sacrifice. I was asked on a podcast recently, what's the secret to good work-life balance? And I said, well, there isn't one.
There isn't one, exactly.
And it's just, look, we chatted before, I know your mum, and it's hard. But from my point of view, I see the impact the programs, not me, the programs are doing.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love that.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the biggest things, isn't it? It's anyone out there, and this is called the Wise Dome podcast because it's all about sharing your wisdom, supporting other people, whatever it is that you can give yourself to others in some form or another. And what you've been doing is very, very inspirational. Yeah. And of course, there is no way in hell I think anyone should presume that it's been easy because I can imagine how many massive storms you've probably weathered along the way. And, but it's all, creating solutions. You're helping other people find solutions, find, ways, shining a light on situations, guiding them. And to do that, we have to experience those things to a degree, understand how to, problem solution, solve our own problem.
I think one of the things that amaze me, so we run these podcasts and there's people all around the world who passionately want to share their story to help others.
Yeah.
And it amazes me sometimes how they reframe how they see their adversity, their lived experience. Like a couple of months ago, a guy rang me. He had diagnosed with Crohn's disease as a 2-year-old. Mm-hmm. He's had a colostomy bag. This guy's about 30. And he is a passionate supporter, encourager of people with physical disabilities. He's created this content to encourage people to with that sort of thing. So he actually sees that he sees the strength and the hidden value in the adversity. So we help people reframe that. But one of the things, most of the funding for what we do is come from my wife and I. But we had a project where we captured stories of people impacted by the Black Summer bushfires in Victoria. Mm-hmm. And I said before, there's so many people around the world who passionately want to share their stories. It was the exact opposite down there. There's a whole bunch of unresolved, unidentified trauma. And the 2 to 5 year period has been shown to be a critical period after the traumatic event. Things that don't appear to be directly related, like addictions developing, relationships falling apart, self-harm appearing. And there's an epidemic worldwide, particularly amongst men, of unresolved and unidentified trauma. And it's the Brené Brown TED Talk. It's this shame thing around this. And I would love to play a part in encouraging people through these stories, and maybe it's through podcasts like this, to actually reach out and seek support from the people that you were talking about before. I think you called it the soft side or whatever. But yeah, sometimes we don't know the impact we have. About 3 months ago, I mentored through the Raise Foundation, and they contacted me and said one of the guys I mentored in 2015 had contacted them and wanted to contact me. He wanted to see if he could get my number. Now, I remember the young guy. He had an incredibly high truancy rate. He wagged a lot. As the mentoring went on, he used to wag different days. He'd turn up for the mentoring. I didn't really we'd have a great time together, but I can't remember anything significant about the mentoring relationship. Anyway, we caught up, and he wanted to tell me the impact that had on his life. The family situation was stuffed at the time, and just that consistency of a male role model had got him through that period. He actually knuckled down, started coming to school every day, went on. He's a successful tradie now, and he's actually like a foreman. I don't know what the term is, but he had a team working for him. And he just wanted to tell me how important that was to him. And it was just brilliant. In fact, he then went on, he did a promotional video for Raise. And I guess I encourage people to ask, just take that time to ask some questions. To be honest, I don't like, are you okay? The question is poor. Yes, no. People ask often without really caring what the result is, and it's not really. For me, maybe a better question could be, Nikki, how are you going out of 10? 9, brilliant. What's going so great for you?
Yeah.
Oh, you said 3. Because it requires it opens up the discussion.
Yeah.
So you can come down, and I guess I encourage listeners, if they care, about someone around them, or I talk a lot. You've already picked that up for the podcast.
We love it.
But every now and then, there's something comes up in the conversation. It's, Ian, shut up. Put your mentoring hat on.
Right.
Pause. Listen intently, and maybe ask a question. But there's something. It's like a radar, and maybe people should, if they want to go down this path, keep an eye out or an ear out for those sort of signals.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, because that's really good advice for anyone out there who is trying to support or guide other people in any form, really. And you probably answered this question, because I do like to ask this question to for all my guests, but what legacy are you looking to leave? You touched on it.
The first thing that came to me, I want to leave a legacy with my grandkids. I suddenly realized the power of storytelling, and I love reading stories, and the effort I put into it, it resonates with, even though many of them can read themselves, I love gathering around and we go through the story. So I've seen the important role that grandparents play. Yeah. But I guess the obvious answer as well, mentoring men and Kintsugi heroes, I want to leave a legacy, a lasting legacy that continues long after I'm gone. And continues to grow. And maybe where the world is not gone, like some of the changes that have happened in my lifetime, the movement away from the village, the neighborhood where you supported one another and connected with one another. Maybe we get back to that. Yeah. Maybe there's a legacy where people gather together to share stories and hear stories, and get more of this connection. Can you imagine how good it would be if once a week in the local library or community centre, group of people, probably with a facilitator, just got down and started sharing this stuff, and that would be an amazing legacy to leave.
Yeah, I think that's an awesome legacy. Hey, storytelling is my life. I think it's the most important thing. It's what has built our humanity. It's just, everything is through storytelling. All of our lessons, all of our messages, everything is through storytelling. It's so important. And I think it's just that, letting people become aware that it's good to share your story, and there's no story that shouldn't be shared ever.
When I remember in primary school, back in the early 60s, long before you were born, Nikki, but we would talk about other cultures, and it was terrible. We would talk about primitive cultures. It was like this arrogance around our technology thing that we had in our culture and all that. And it's becoming clearer to me the wisdom that was often in those cultures. They didn't suffer from the rates of depression or anxiety or any of this stuff. But storytelling was such a key part of it. They would pass on these stories around generations.
Yeah.
And I love that. I think there's so much that we can learn from that. We've created, because of the pressures and or whatever, we've created a lot of the challenges, particularly the mental health challenges that we currently have. And then our first solution, well, we need to throw like more technology at the solution. But maybe if we just got back around stories, of caring for one another.
Yeah, listening.
One of another consistent theme that hits me is we, and I'm putting my hand up with this, we focus on symptoms. This journey around mentoring men took me down the drug path. And I've never taken a illicit drug in my life, but I met with ice addicts and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And I was chatting to one of our mentoring men mentors one day who used to take drugs, and I'm trying to get an understanding. He said something that just totally reframed my thinking. He said, Ian, if you want to reduce illicit drug usage, stop sexual abuse. It took me 5 seconds to understand what he was saying.
Yeah.
And when he did, it just, the old Ian would look at that person with the needle up the whatever it is, the homeless, the drug, you've made that choice and all that sort of stuff. The new improved Ian had this incredible empathy. What horrible thing has happened that you need to numb whatever it is there?
Yeah. And
that I've seen that so many different areas of my life, and it reframes it. And when you get away from that judgmental attitude, become far more effective. There's some really exciting stuff in this place. I can't share it at the moment, but hopefully there's going to be a national TV campaign around prevention to some of the major issues we've got. Anyway, I won't.
Don't give away
a conversation for another time. But please, listeners, try and move away from the symptoms. Think about what's happening. It doesn't excuse the symptoms. It doesn't excuse behaviour. My attitude to my dad, but it helps. It helps get a better understanding and maybe a better outcome.
Exactly. Oh, you've been awesome to chat with, Ian, today. Absolutely. And you don't talk a lot. I just wanted to hear your whole story. It had to be shared. It is just full of values as well as value for our audience. I think there's so many messages in everything that you mentioned today. So I really appreciate your time, Ian. And is there anything that you want to let our audience know? Obviously, all the links and everything to contact you will be in our summary below. But is there any last message you want to share with our audience?
Look, if this has touched anyone and they want to get in contact with us with any ideas or whatever, please reach out through email, and you've got the links to Kintsugi Heroes and mentoring them. But Nikki, I love what you're doing, and hopefully, if this in any way has helped with your audience, then I just incredibly grateful for that.
It would have on many, many levels. Thank you again so much, Ian, for your time. And again, everyone, the details of Ian's, contact details and everything like that will be in our podcast summary below. Be sure to click on the link and don't forget to subscribe and leave us feedback. Every little bit helps. Thanks again, Ian. Thanking our sponsors today and every episode that we do go live with, Wisdom and the Wisdom on Wisdom events. Be sure to check out details in our summary below. Wisdom is our learning and content management platform for anyone who's sharing their content online through memberships, courses, challenges, creating a community and engaging with their members. All details, like I said, are below in our summary. Thanks for listening to the Wise Dome podcast. If you enjoyed and have been inspired by this episode and you'd like to support the podcast, do subscribe and please share it with others. Post about us on social media or leave a rating and review. To
catch all the latest from me, Nikki Kelly, you can follow me on Instagram at Wisedome Podcast, WISEDOME Podcast. I'm Nikki Kelly. Thanks again, and we'll catch up next time.